Africa, a continent teeming with life. From the vast savannas to the lush rainforests, it's a spectacle of nature's wonders. Elephants, majestic and wise, roam the plains. Lions, kings and queens of their domain, command respect with their very presence. Rhinos, ancient and armored, graze peacefully. These creatures and countless others are vital to Africa's delicate ecosystem. But today, this incredible tapestry of life faces an unprecedented threat. The threat? Poaching. Driven by greed and fueled by demand, organized criminal networks have cast a dark net over Africa's wildlife. Their illegal activities threaten to decimate populations and push species to the brink of extinction. We must stand together to protect Africa's wildlife and safeguard its future. Across Africa, a silent slaughter is taking place. Animals are not merely being hunted, they are being systematically targeted and eradicated. Elephant populations, once numbering in the millions, have plummeted to critically low levels. It's estimated that as many as 20,000 elephants are killed each year for their ivory tusks. These gentle giants, capable of such intelligence and empathy, are being brutally slain for profit. But it's not just elephants. Rhinos, with their prehistoric armor, are also in the crosshairs. The demand for these illegal wildlife products fuels the poaching crisis, driving organized crime. This is a fight for survival, a race against time to protect Africa's natural heritage. The ivory trade has cast a long and bloody shadow over Africa. For centuries, elephants have been hunted for their tusks, their ivory coveted for its beauty. While the international trade in ivory was officially banned in 1989, the illegal trade continues to thrive. Driven by demand from Asia, particularly China, poachers continue to target elephants. The consequences of this illegal trade are devastating. Elephant populations have been decimated, with some areas losing entire generations. The loss of these keystone species disrupts the delicate balance of nature. The ivory trade has cast a long and bloody shadow over Africa. For centuries, elephants have been hunted for their tusks, their ivory coveted for its beauty. While the international trade in ivory was officially banned in 1989, the illegal trade continues to thrive. Driven by demand from Asia, particularly China, poachers continue to target elephants. The consequences of this illegal trade are devastating. Elephant populations have been decimated, with some areas losing entire generations. The loss of these keystone species disrupts the delicate balance of nature. Rhinos hunted for their horns. Poaching, at its core, is a brutal business driven by a simple equation: supply and demand. On one side, you have poverty-stricken communities desperate for any means of survival. The lure of quick money can be a powerful motivator. For a poacher, risking capture or even death might seem a small price to pay for the chance to feed their family. A single elephant tusk can fetch a small fortune on the black market, but this desperate act comes at a tremendous cost. The animals they kill are not just commodities, they are living, breathing creatures with their own intrinsic right to exist. Poaching undermines conservation efforts and fuels the coffers of organized crime. The illegal wildlife trade is a multi-billion-dollar industry controlled by sophisticated criminal networks. These are not small-time poachers, but organized mafias, often with links to other illegal activities. They exploit poverty and corruption, bribing officials and intimidating local communities. These criminal networks are highly organized, using sophisticated technology and transportation networks. Combating these criminal networks requires a coordinated global effort. Section 3, Poverty and Lack of Opportunity. While organized crime is the driving force behind the illegal wildlife trade, it's essential to understand the socio-economic factors that make poaching an appealing option. Poverty is often cited as a root cause of poaching. In many parts of Africa, people live in extreme poverty, lacking access to basic necessities. The lack of economic opportunities in rural areas further exacerbates the problem. Addressing poverty and creating sustainable livelihood opportunities for local communities are crucial steps in combating poaching. Section 4. Demand fuels the fire. While poverty may drive some to poach, it is the insatiable demand for wildlife products that fuels the fire. Ivory, rhino horn, pangolin scales, these are not mere trinkets, they are status symbols. This demand, particularly in Asia, creates a lucrative market for poachers and traffickers. To effectively combat poaching, we must address the demand side of the equation. Education and awareness-raising campaigns are essential to inform consumers about the devastating impact of their choices. Section 1. Turning the tide: success stories in conservation. Despite the grim statistics, there are glimmers of hope emerging from the front lines of wildlife conservation in Africa. Dedicated individuals, communities, and organizations are working tirelessly to protect endangered species. In the heart of Kenya, the Lewa Wildlife Conservancy stands as a beacon of success in community-led conservation. Through partnerships with local communities, Lewa has protected endangered species and created economic opportunities. By empowering communities to become stewards of their own natural heritage, Lewa has created a model for sustainable conservation. Community-based conservation, empowering local guardians. Across Africa, a growing movement recognizes that the most effective conservation efforts are those that empower local communities. Community-based conservation initiatives, like those pioneered by the Northern Rangelands Trust in Kenya, are transforming the relationship between people and wildlife. By providing communities with the tools, training, and incentives to manage their own natural resources, these initiatives foster a sense of ownership. Local people who know the land best are trained as rangers, trackers, and wildlife monitors. Community-based tourism initiatives further empower local economies, providing alternative livelihoods linked to wildlife conservation. Technology on the front lines, fighting poaching with innovation. In the fight against poaching, technology is proving to be a game changer. Drones equipped with high-resolution cameras and thermal imaging capabilities are being deployed to patrol vast areas. Sensors placed strategically throughout protected areas detect the sound of gunshots, alerting rangers to poaching incidents in real time. DNA analysis is being used to track ivory and other wildlife products back to their source. By tracing the origin of seized ivory, law enforcement agencies can identify poaching hotspots and target their efforts more effectively. A global call to action: protecting Africa's wildlife together. Protecting Africa's wildlife is not just a local or regional issue, it is a global imperative. The illegal wildlife trade is a transnational crime that demands a coordinated international response. Governments, law enforcement agencies, conservation organizations, and individuals must work together to combat poaching. Stronger laws and penalties for wildlife crime are essential to deter poachers and traffickers. Increased funding for anti-poaching patrols and law enforcement capacity building is crucial. International cooperation is vital to disrupt trafficking routes and apprehend criminals. Education and awareness-raising campaigns are crucial to change attitudes and behaviors. The future of Africa's wildlife hangs in the balance. Boots on the ground strengthening anti-poaching efforts. The fight against poaching is won and lost on the front lines. Dedicated rangers, often risking their lives, are the first and last line of defense for Africa's endangered species. These brave men and women patrol vast wilderness areas, often with limited resources. Strengthening anti-poaching efforts requires a multi-pronged approach. Increased funding is crucial to recruit and train more rangers and provide them with better equipment. Intelligence gathering and sharing are essential to stay one step ahead of the poachers. By working closely with local communities, we can anticipate threats and deploy resources more effectively. Strengthening legal frameworks and imposing harsh penalties will send a clear message that wildlife crime will not be tolerated. No market, no killing disrupting the illegal wildlife trade. As long as there is demand for illegal wildlife products, the poaching crisis will persist. We must attack this problem at its root by disrupting the trafficking networks. This requires a global effort involving collaboration between governments and law enforcement agencies. Border controls must be tightened, and intelligence sharing between countries needs to improve. Financial investigations can play a crucial role in following the money trail. Public awareness campaigns can educate people about the devastating consequences of their choices. Highlighting the plight of endangered species and promoting sustainable alternatives can help reduce demand. Investing in a sustainable future, empowering communities, changing minds. Conservation efforts are most successful when they go hand in hand with improving the lives of people living alongside wildlife. By investing in sustainable development initiatives in communities bordering protected areas, we can create economic opportunities that are intrinsically linked to conservation. This might involve supporting ecotourism ventures, providing training in sustainable agriculture or other income-generating activities, or investing in education and healthcare infrastructure. When people have a stake in the well-being of their environment, they become its most ardent protectors. Education is key. By teaching young people about the importance of biodiversity, the interconnectedness of ecosystems, and the threats facing wildlife, we can foster a generation that is passionate about conservation. And finally, we must never underestimate the power of storytelling. Sharing the stories of the individuals and communities on the front lines of conservation, the successes achieved, and the challenges faced, can inspire others to join the fight. Every voice raised, every action taken, brings us closer to a future where Africa's magnificent wildlife can thrive, not just survive. Securing a future for Africa's wildlife. The plight of Africa's endangered species is a stark reminder of the fragility of our planet's ecosystems and the urgent need for action. We've journeyed from the heart of the poaching crisis, witnessing the devastating impact of this illegal trade on vulnerable creatures. We've seen the greed that drives it and the complex web of poverty, corruption, and demand that sustains it. But this is not a story without hope. Across the continent, courageous individuals, dedicated communities, and passionate organizations are fighting back. They are the boots on the ground, the voices for the voiceless, the guardians of Africa's natural heritage. They are turning the tide, proving that with relentless effort, strategic action, and unwavering commitment, we can protect these magnificent animals and secure their future. From strengthening anti-poaching patrols and disrupting trafficking networks to empowering local communities and changing consumer behavior, every effort we make, no matter how small, contributes to the larger solution. It's a collective responsibility, a global movement that requires each of us to play our part. We must remember that the fate of Africa's wildlife is intertwined with our own. Their survival is a testament to the health of our planet, a reflection of our values, and a legacy we must strive to protect for generations to come. Our shared responsibility. The future of Africa's wildlife, its elephants, rhinos, lions, and countless other species, hangs in the balance. But it's not a lost cause. We can rewrite the narrative, shift the trajectory, and ensure that these iconic animals continue to roam free for generations to come. It requires a fundamental shift in our thinking, a recognition that we are not separate from nature, but a part of it. We must acknowledge the intrinsic value of wildlife, not just their economic worth. We must understand that their survival is our survival, that their well-being is interconnected with our own. Each one of us has a role to play in this fight for survival. We can support conservation organizations working on the ground, raise awareness within our own communities, make conscious consumer choices, and advocate for stronger policies to protect wildlife. Even small actions, multiplied by millions, can create a ripple effect of change. Let us choose hope over despair, action over apathy, and together let us be the generation that turns the tide and secures a future where Africa's wildlife thrives. The time to act is now. The responsibility is ours. Let's not let future generations inherit a world devoid of these magnificent creatures.